Welcome back to Book Break. Today I am joined by the amazing author Abigail Tarttelin, whose book Dead Girls is out now. Can you tell us a little bit about the book?
It is about two best friends, Thera and Billy. They're 11 years old, it's 1999, the age of girl power.
Like my t-shirt.
Yep, exactly like your t-shirt. I was so pleased when I saw that. And Billy goes missing. And at the beginning of the book, so it's not giving away any spoilers, when Thera hears that she's gone missing, she thinks I'm the best person to find her. So she goes off to look for her friend and she finds Billy dead and Billy's been killed. And Thera decides, because it's her very best friend and she's a kid and she's very black and white, there's good versus evil, and she's going to go hunt down a killer.
So the title, Dead Girls, is partly in reference to there are these ghosts that we meet throughout the book, and then also from reading the dedication, you've dedicated it to all of the dead and missing girls.
Every 10 minutes an adolescent girl dies a violent death, and I felt like I wanted to write a book for those little girls. It's a little bit of an opportunity for them to have a bit of a kick-ass narrative.
But this is very much not a YA novel.
Not for kids.
No.
Personally, I'd say that it's probably 15 plus.
Thera reacts really strongly against the way that Billy is talked about by her friends at school and by her family. It's all that she's this sort of angel victim who is perfect.
Yeah, exactly. That's such an important thing about the book to me. And I do think when we report on dead and missing girls and women, if it's a prostitute or an older woman, we don't really think about it that much and it doesn't get that much media. But then when it's a little girl and they're sort of purer and younger and blonder, the better. I think there's a racial element there. We need them to be like that to care, seemingly. And I really want to talk about that women are complex, that girls are complex, and that we don't need to be angels in order for our lives to have meaning. Personally, I don't want to be seen as a victim. I feel like I've, in life got in there and kicked a bit of ass and, fought for the things that I loved. And I think we need to be talking about women like that. So I love the idea that somebody sets out to be a victor. Yeah, and whether they succeed or not, they're still a victor in my eyes.
There's been a conversation starting recently about thrillers, that so many of them have women as their victims. What other books or films can you think of recently that have done a better job of that?
Okay, well, there's the very obvious, and it's not so recent now, but Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. And I think that kind of kicked off the feminist revenge narrative as a wave. And then Gone Girl, I think, was another big one.
Yeah.
But even just in the past year, there's been Thoroughbreds, these two teenage girls, American, who decide to enact revenge on, I think it's one of their fathers. And I'm really looking forward to a film, independent film, called Revenge, really great reviews, and it's about a woman called Jen who goes with her partner on a little trip. And then two of his friends show up and basically they begin to abuse her and they leave her for dead, but she's not dead. And when she wakes up, she enacts bloody revenge. So I'm really looking forward to that. I think the main reason that people like the feminist revenge narrative is that it's really fun and entertaining. Yeah, and I personally don't always want to read feminist books where I feel the pain so much. I'd quite like to read some kick-ass stuff.
I think we're ready for it.
More. I think we
are.
are
The same. That when I first sort of really started getting into reading feminist books, they were all very sad because they were all about exposing the problems.
Yeah.
And those, there's definitely a place for those. Those are really important and they shaped my feminism so much.
Yeah.
But I then got to the point where it's like, I can't read another one of these. It just makes me want to curl up into a ball and feel helpless. Whereas this made me feel powerful.
Cool, I'm so glad.
You mentioned some of the statistics about the violence that women face and the dangers that women face. What's the best way to balance talking to women and talking to young girls about the very real dangers that they need to be aware of, but without talking to them as potential victims? Talking to them as potential victors is the phrase that you use.
I think that you can talk to young girls about being aware of strangers, but the way that we do it is that we stop talking to them about being a good girl and being obedient and pretty as the highest values. Talk about what you can do in an aggressive and frightening way to scare off somebody. My mum always taught me to yell your head off, and I think men prey on little girls because they think that they're not going to get anything like what Thera does in Dead Girls.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'd really like to talk about Nathan. I found Nathan a really interesting character because he is a teenage boy dealing with these things, and he's coming of age and discovering his sexuality while also learning about the more violent version of those desires that some men can have. What do you think is the best way that we can educate young boys?
I mean, I think that's a harder and probably a less talked about question. Little boys, just the same as little girls, haven't had a chance, given how old they are, to impact on society yet. They're really just imbibing everything that comes to them and reflecting back what they've been taught. I really feel for Nathan because he's, like Vera, affected by this violent sexual act that happens to Billy. And in thinking about his own sexuality, that really warps him in the same way that I really want to talk about how in the transition from girlhood to womanhood, often girl sexuality is affected by the presence of rape culture and what they read and see and hear.
Do you have any plans for your next book?
I don't want to hint too much, but I'm going to be talking a bit more about masculinity, because I touched on that in my first book, but I wrote my first book when I was 19, 21, but now I've dated all of the men.
Yeah.
And I can report back. And it's a little bit about crime as well.
Well, thank you so much for talking to me.
Thank
this is
you.
really great. Dead Girls is out now. I highly recommend it. But it was really powerful, but also really entertaining. Like you said, I was up until 3 a.m. reading it.
Wow.
Really, really recommend. And do leave a comment below if you have any recommendations for crime books and movies that have powerful women in them that are the victims, not the victims.
I want to read them.
Yeah, we'd love to find them all. And next week on Book Break, we're going to be talking about mental health in the workplace. So do hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on that one. We'll see you next time.